On May 10th, 1799, after over a month of relentless attacks and fierce bombardments, Napoleon Bonaparte's forces break through British and Ottoman defenses, capturing the strategic city of Acre. The victory not only changes the course of his Egyptian campaign, but also shifts the geopolitical balance of power in the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and beyond. Acre was no ordinary city. It was a vital port, strategically located on the coast of the Levant, with direct access to the Mediterranean and vital trade routes. Had Napoleon succeeded in capturing it, the world as we know it might have looked very different. With the fall of Acre, the British Navy, led by Commodore Sir Sidney Smith, would likely have been forced to abandon the city, retreating to prevent the loss of their warships. The British naval blockade of Napoleon's forces would have been significantly weakened, giving him the chance to utilize the port for his own ambitions. But Napoleon wasn't just interested in securing Acre for France. He had grander plans. Much like Alexander the Great, he sought to extend his empire into the east, a land of untapped riches, strategic importance, and immense potential. With Acre under French control, Napoleon would have pushed further into the Levant, likely setting his sights on Damascus. The Ottoman forces, already scattered by the French at Acre, might have regrouped. However, at this point, Ottoman military power had been significantly weakened, and Napoleon's superior tactics, bolstered by modern European muskets and bayonets, would have likely outclassed the Ottoman forces again. As his army advanced, Napoleon's ambition would not have stopped at Syria. He could have looked further east, into Persia, a former Persian empire ripe for exploitation. The British, concerned about their interests in India, would have done everything to stop him. But Napoleon, ever the strategist, could have sought alliances with regional powers like the Mamluks or even the Persians themselves, offering them French support in exchange for loyalty against the British. Napoleon, now with access to the Persian Gulf, a direct route to British India. This move could have reshaped the global balance of power. A presence in the east would threaten British colonial roots and commerce. The Royal Navy would have faced a two-front struggle, one in Europe and the other in the Indian Ocean. But as grand as his ambitions were, Napoleon would have faced challenges. His forces, already strained after the siege of Acre, numbered only around 9,500 men, far too few to conquer an empire. A logistical nightmare loomed. Supplies from France would be difficult to obtain due to the British blockade, and maintaining an army so far from home would have been nearly impossible. Napoleon, ever tireless, would have recruited local troops, bolstering his army with soldiers from the region. In Egypt, he had already begun recruiting Mamluks and Arabs to fight for his cause. His forces would have been a patchwork of French soldiers, Arabs, and Egyptians, all united under the banner of French ambition. But while Napoleon focused on consolidating his Eastern Empire back in France, the revolution was taking a turn. The young republic was under pressure from the Second Coalition, and with Napoleon away, France's enemies, Austria, Russia, and Britain, seized the opportunity. Despite his victory at Acre, Napoleon couldn't escape the growing storm in Europe. Without Napoleon's presence, France would face political instability. The Second Coalition's pressure was mounting, and the revolutionary government was teetering on the edge of collapse. In this environment, a coup was inevitable. Instead of Napoleon leading it, as he did in our timeline, General Jean-Victor Moreau would emerge as the central figure. Moreau, a prominent general in the Revolutionary Wars, had always been a rival to Napoleon. Without Napoleon's shadow over French politics, Moreau would take control, alongside CAS and Ducos, establishing a new government, the Consulate. The French would still have a new government, but without the genius of Napoleon leading them, the Republic would have been in a fragile position. Moreau, as first consul, would have struggled to hold back the tide of the Second Coalition. Though a skilled military commander, he lacked Napoleon's unique vision and drive. The absence of Napoleon's genius would have left France vulnerable to the coalition's superior resources and manpower, but Moreau would have fought on, attempting to consolidate French power and defend their remaining territories. The struggle between the revolutionary ideals of the French Republic and the monarchist, aristocratic powers of Europe would continue. However, France's situation was becoming more dire with each passing day. Meanwhile, in the east, Napoleon's empire was far from secure. The British Navy, though weakened, would continue to disrupt French supply lines. Napoleon's forces, spread thin across vast territories, would struggle to maintain control over his new conquests. Local uprisings in Egypt and Syria would require his attention, draining precious resources. Napoleon's dream of an Oriental empire would be a fleeting one. With France losing ground in Europe and his empire stretched too thin, Napoleon would have been forced to make a difficult decision: abandon the East and return to France to secure the revolution, or press on, hoping for a miracle. In 1801, 2 years later than in the actual timeline, Napoleon would smuggle himself back to France aboard a small frigate. Upon his return, the consulate would be abolished, and Napoleon would be granted supreme command of all French forces. He would then go on to crush the Austrians at Marengo, securing his position as the undisputed leader of the Republic. We'll increase the pace here, as many events would unfold similarly to the actual timeline. Napoleon would rise to become emperor, and France would gradually recover from the years of turmoil. However, one grand exception must be made: the colonies of Egypt and Syria would not be lost. In response to Napoleon's growing naval investments, Great Britain would divert more ships to their home waters. This shift would leave Napoleon free to redirect his focus from Europe and land in Egypt with a massive fighting force. This time, he would possess the capability to truly follow in the footsteps of Alexander the Great.